Hi, everyone. There's a few issues today to discuss, but it will just take a few minutes relating to some lawn pests and some other issues that are easily recognizable for us, and as a result, they're easily recognizable for our customers. They demand, in a lot of cases, your attention when you're on lawns. And these things also generate a lot of questions from customers to you, as well as to people in the office. So it's important that we all recognize what some of these issues are and how to handle them and how to explain them to customers. The issues that we're going to discuss briefly are the issues of red thread and dollar spot, which both of these are beginning to appear in lawns, as well as seed heads. Germinating crabgrass is something that isn't necessarily recognizable to customers at this stage of the game, but something that we need to be paying attention to and take appropriate action. And finally, spring grubs, which aren't a huge issue in our customers' lawn, but they do cause customers a lot of concern when customers find them. The most noticeable issue that we have right now that our customers are dealing with is red thread in their lawns. And red thread is just beginning to become apparent. It looks to customers, as you see here on the left, as brown or reddish patches in their lawn. The red mycelium, as you can see in the slide on the right-hand side of your screen, extends out of the tips of the blade and appears first thing in the morning as these spots being red. These spots later on in the day turn out to be brown as the red mycelium of the fungus tends to dry out and wither up. It will appear red again the next morning, and then shortly after the sun comes up and dries these spots out, the spots will turn back to brown. A related disease that often looks the same to our customers in terms of it causing brown patches in the lawn is what we call dollar spot. Dollar spot, if you notice it or find it in wet turf, as you see here on the left-hand side, you will sometimes see the white-like mycelium in the grass when it is wet. But again, just like with red thread, that mycelium has got to dry up and not be there later on the day as the grass dries out. One easy way to distinguish between red thread and dollar spot is dollar spot has some very distinct lesions on the blades of the grass. If you find one of these lesions, you'll notice that they have a white band in the middle, and there's a brown band at the top, and there's a brown band at the bottom. That is what we use to distinguish red thread from dollar spot. And you'll find these bands in dollar spot damaged turf, but not in red thread damaged turf. Both of these diseases are caused by a fungus. It is what's referred to as cosmetic damage, meaning that this fungus, or neither one of these fungus, is going to cause any permanent damage to the lawn. They are both going to create brown spots anywhere from 3 to 5 inches in diameter, and they are encouraged most by moist, cool weather. So in general, if we are having a lot of rain, or particularly if we're having a lot of showers at night in May and June, and the grass spends a considerable amount of time wet and doesn't dry out, those are prime conditions, perfect conditions for the development of both red thread and dollar spot. Usually you'll find red thread appearing first in the lawns, and then as time goes by, you'll begin to see more and more dollar spot. As I mentioned earlier, red thread is going to appear red in the morning while the grass is wet, and it's got to dry out and turn brown throughout the day. Whether you're dealing with red thread, however, or dollar spot, both of these diseases are going to be treated the same by Seascape. What do we do when we find them? First of all, apply a little bit of extra fertilizer, go a little bit heavy, which is going to encourage the grass to grow out of this damage a little bit more quickly. You certainly want to leave a good note on work orders for the customer, as well as one of our picture fact sheets, which has a very good explanation for the customer of what they're looking at and what the impact of this disease is going to be on their lawn. We generally do not apply fungicides to this, either of these diseases. However, we will on occasion run into a lawn that has a consistent, generally persistent problem with red thread year in and year out, and it lingers into the summer. And we will on occasion offer a disease control program to those customers, which will help prevent red thread and dollar spot. The disease control program, however, is a little bit pricey. And I think you're going to find that most customers, unless they have a very, very severe case, and I've seen it numerous times, are just going to wait out these particular diseases and wait for their lawn to recover. The next issue that you'll find beginning to appear in lawns in late May and then throughout the month of June is the development of seed heads. Most mowed lawns typically do not develop a lot of seed heads. We generally don't see seed heads in grasses unless the lawns or unless the grasses go unmown. However, certain varieties of home lawns, the grasses in home lawns, will develop seed heads even though the grass is being mown and being kept short. What you'll first notice is the seed heads begin as white, and as time goes by, the seed heads will begin to turn brown and give the lawn a brown appearance. Just a couple of other shots you can see here on the left-hand side. There are patches of some kind of a grass in this lawn that are going to seed. And the right-hand side is just another example of how seed heads can appear white in a lawn initially, and certainly will create questions or concerns on the part of many of our customers. Some things that you should know about seed heads. Seed heads are generally produced in lawns that are mown in May and June. They tend to be worse in Kentucky bluegrass, and as you know, most of our sodded lawns contain predominantly Kentucky bluegrass. Another name for Kentucky bluegrass is June grass, and it gets that name June grass because Kentucky bluegrass is known to go to seed in the month of June. You should note that some varieties, even some varieties of Kentucky bluegrass, will produce seed heads more than other varieties of Kentucky bluegrass. And as a result, not all lawns are going to produce seed heads. You may find in a neighborhood that a lawn has a significant number of seed heads, yet other lawns around it, you will not find any seed heads. And that often leads to even more questions from customers in regards to why do they have them, not their neighbors. And it's just simply you happen to have a variety of grass that is a prolific seed head producer. Seed heads are generally low on the grass plant, okay? And in general, they will not be mown off. In some cases they will be, but oftentimes the seed heads are produced below the mowing height. Seed heads will generally be present for 2 to 3 weeks. First, they're going to be, the lawn is going to turn white, or you'll have white patches in the lawn. And then slowly the seed heads will turn brown and they'll begin to fall off. It's a temporary issue, a temporary problem, and it will go away. Okay, what to do if we have seed heads in a lawn? Explain to a customer that's a perfectly natural process. It's not the result of anything Seascape did or did not do. There's nothing we can do to make them go away. But again, leave a good note. And again, we do have a good picture of seed heads and explanation in one of the various fact sheets we can leave for customers. Crabgrass. Crabgrass is just now starting to germinate in lawns. As you can see here on the left, you can see a picture of crabgrass as it begins to germinate. At this stage, most crabgrass is not going to be apparent. to a customer. They would never notice a new grass emerging at this stage. And they certainly, in most cases, would not be able to identify this crabgrass germinating as a potential problem down the road. We need to recognize at Seascape, okay, first, that this is the perfect time, if we do find this, to apply a post-emergent control, which I'll get to in a moment. Now is the best time and easiest time to control crabgrass. It's very sensitive to our post-emergent controls at this stage of the game. You will find it first and foremost along the edges or in thin areas or south-facing slope where the soil is going to warm up the quickest. That will encourage the crabgrass to germinate the earliest in those areas that tend to have the soil warming up the quickest. Remember, okay, 4 to 5 weeks after that crabgrass germinates, the crabgrass is going to begin to grow very rapidly. Within 4 to 5 weeks, the crabgrass will look like what you see here, with the tillers spreading out very aggressively into what's referred to as a pinwheel effect. At this stage of the game, it becomes much more difficult to control this crabgrass post-emergently. And as many of you have seen, and I know recognize, that crabgrass, if this was in a lawn, crabgrass is going to crowd out other grasses because crabgrass grows very aggressively under warmer conditions in July and August. In July and August, our permanent grasses, our bluegrasses and fescues tend to go into a state of dormancy. Crabgrass, however, grows very rapidly in July and August and very quickly take over a lawn. So please remember, when you find crabgrass, the best time to control it is when it is immature, because the more mature crabgrass becomes, the more difficult it is to control. A couple of points on understanding crabgrass and its germination. Most germination is going to occur in early May and will take place, a lot of germination throughout the month of May. However, germination is going to continue all throughout the year. For example, we might have a thunderstorm in July. You will sometimes see another flush of crabgrass occurring at that point in time in response to the added soil moisture. Remember that the pre-emergent control, the dimension that we apply in applications 1 and 2, is only going to last for 5 to 6 weeks. And as a result of that, when you do get some of these late season storms or thunderstorms, we may see a late flush, what's referred to as a late season flush of crabgrass in July or August. They normally occur after a drought when some rain occurs. This crabgrass germinating late in the season generally will not mature and go to seed and be a problem for customers. So it's the early season, the early May crabgrass that is germinating right now that we're most concerned with. And if you find it, if you recognize it as crabgrass, now is the perfect time to control it before it becomes a major problem. As we have used in previous years, we are going to continue to use Drive or quinclorac in order to do post-emergent control on crabgrass. It's a good product. It seems to work better as they improve it year after year, and is relatively effective so long as you get to the crabgrass early. Finally, we need to discuss grubs briefly in terms of what to tell customers when they find a grub, whether it's in their lawn or whether it's in their mulch bed when they're digging, planting flowers or new shrubs. Remember, as I say here, that most damage is done in the fall by grubs. Grubs in a lawn in the spring are generally not a problem. As you can see here in the months of May and June, the grubs have spent the winter down deep in the soil, and in May and June, they work their way back up to the surface, and then they emerge as Japanese beetle or as beetle adults a little bit later on in the season, normally from mid to late July. Those Japanese beetles will damage trees and shrubs. Tomatoes, for example, are particularly sensitive. A whole variety of annual flowers are particularly sensitive to the Japanese beetle adults. But those beetle adults, after feeding on flowers and on plants, particularly such as roses, will then drop back down to the grass, will lay eggs in July and throughout the month of August. Those eggs then will germinate into grubs in September and October, and that is when most of the damage to grasses is going to take place in our customers' lawns. So grubs in the spring are large, but you've got to remind customers they generally do not do any feeding on grasses at this time of the year. Okay, control measures really aren't effective at this time of the year because the grubs are not causing damage at this time of the year. So in order to apply or we really cannot justify a control measure at this time of the year. There is some potential for damage from grubs at this time of the year if skunks or birds find them, because the skunks and the birds are going to feed on the grubs, all right? It might be wise if a customer is finding grubs in their lawn or you find grubs in a lawn to do the following, okay? If you're finding no more than 1 or 2 grubs per square foot, generally there's no control needed, there's no control warranted. Those grubs at that population density are not going to cause any problems to the lawn. However, if the grubs are present in greater numbers, or if the customer is explaining, is expressing a concern, a Dilox application may be justified in order to ensure the grubs are limited in their potential to cause damage, particularly if they're going to be found by skunks or birds. Okay, a Dilox application might be justified just as a little bit of insurance to make sure these grubs are not going to be a concern for our customers. So what I would like for everybody to do now that I've completed this presentation, if you would please take just an extra minute and click on the link that is part of this email and take the very short quiz in order to confirm that everybody has watched this. We know who has seen it and who has not seen it, and we have a good record of that. Okay, that's all I have. Thanks. We will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.